What's up, YouTube? Framinthor here, the hottest thing since Pizza Pops. I'm still working on an intro, but whatever. It finally happened. Josh Strife Hayes is talking about World of Warcraft. He finally stopped ignoring that dodgy mistress, and he's finally talking about it. And I want to see what this is about, and I'm gonna react to it. It is a 45-minute video, 44, which is a range. I think it's planned. There's no way it's not planned. I'm gonna react to it. We're gonna see what he has to say, and I'll drop the link to the video down below. Let's get to it.
You'll know more about this than I will. World of Warcraft's latest expansion, is it Dragonflight?
Yeah.
Yes,
Gotcha. The one where they looked at Guild Wars 2 and went, that's a pretty good mount system.
Yeah.
Be fair, they can go like competition between MMORPGs is a good thing, and stealing good ideas from others is good. However, in my opinion, from what I've seen, it's a cheap imitation. There's like Guild Wars 2 mount system and like the flying and like all the mount system as a whole is way insane compared to like anything they're gonna introduce with the Dragonfly.
Let's take that. Talk me through Dragonflight.
It has been the best and worst thing that's happened to me this week. Best thing because it looks like they have actually taken.
Key point. Looks like it is. But let's be real.
Valid criticism of all the systems, and they've gone through and thought, you know what? The players actually know what they're on about. We'll bring back the old talent system because it's what everybody wanted.
Yeah,
and
that's the only good thing I've seen.
That people have had with WoW. They call it the borrowed power system, where the best example is they dig a hole with an expansion, and then at the end of the expansion, they fill it back in before digging the next hole.
That's a really good analogy. There's a study about like they were paying people way above what the wage should be. It was like I think it was like 12 people or something like that, and like all they told them it's like half the, like most of the day they're gonna be emptying a hole, and then the end of the day they have to fill up that hole, and that was the real job. So like they had no purpose in their job, and even though they were getting paid a lot more, almost everyone quit except one guy, and then they asked him like, why didn't you quit at the end of it, and he said, I just really need the money. So it's like he was so desperate, he didn't care that he's doing something useless completely, but everyone else, even though they're making a lot of money, just quit that study. Like they didn't want to do the job anymore.
So they give you this power, then you forfeit it at the end of the expansion, then you regain it again over and over. And they've said that they want to go back to vanilla, where your progress through multiple expansions feels meaningful and like compounding from every decision you make, which is brilliant. That's the purpose of the RPG element, right?
Yeah, borrowed power, parasitic design. Some people call it content islands. So
content islands. That's the first I hear about, but yeah, that's honestly I wish it was closer to content islands. The way I view content islands would be something like you have all these like islands in the sea and you just go there and it has its own theme park and like you do your own thing there, but everything you have there doesn't apply to any of the other islands. However, the island has to still be relevant. You can still go back in there if you want. Unfortunately, that's not the case because once you pass Shadowlands and you start doing Dragonflight, Shadowlands completely useless.
Here's a perfect example. Was it in Legion where you got the Legion weapons?
The artifact weapons, yes.
That was the one. So you start the Legion expansion, you get the artifact weapons, you build them up to be super powerful, and then at the end of the expansion, everyone has their power drained from their artifact weapons in order to effectively cleanse the massive sword that Sargeras has stabbed the planet.
What sword? Well, the other problem with the Legion, like the artifact weapons, was literally you had. Oh, the blonde chick's kind of hot, not gonna lie. Anyways, you had the weapon and had a cap, and it was possible to get the cap, but it was very daunting and very farming to get the cap, which I'd say I was doing as well, but like some people were doing it like religiously, and once you got it, it was kind of like great, I'm done. Like I got nothing more to farm, which is good and bad at the same time. I don't know, like I didn't like it for the most part. It was fine on my first character for my main job. You couldn't do it on different specs. You couldn't. It wasn't account bound, so it's like you you want 2 characters to have that much, like, to complete their weapon, you might as well just wait for 7.1 basically.
So when the next expansion starts,
which, by the way, 7.1 made 7.0 completely redundant, which is also like, it's not even Content Island anymore. It's like, yeah, just play the patch. Like in the Content Island, you have islands, right? It's like, which are not
you are back
relevant.
to being less powerful because you've drained your artifact.
Yeah, that was the worst thing. Like in BFA, once you got to level 115 or 116, and like your legendaries and stuff from Legion stopped working, and then you literally feel like you got super weaker compared to literally a level before, which is was so weird.
Exactly.
People in the chat are like, what sword? What sword? Didn't
Yeah,
even
what
happen.
sword?
What sword?
Yeah.
No, it's
pulls rug over sword. Someone in my chat says.
Yeah, just put a big sheet over it and just it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Okay. That is a perfect example of like the DM forgetting what's been happening in the game.
Yeah.
But the DM is Blizzard.
They do that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone's gone, hey, well, what happened to that massive sword that Sargrass stabbed the planet with? Don't worry about it. It's fine. We've fixed the planet's wounds with Azerite. We have drained the artifact weapons to fix it. In fact, you know, World of Warcraft story is something I want to talk to you about in a second. But borrowed power, the idea that an expansion starts, you get powerful, the expansion ends, you get weak again, which means there's no real continuity between the previous expansion and the next one. And that.
By the way, the only thing that's like, I know when people say like borrowed power, and like the devs are saying this, oh, borrowed power can also be tier sets, borrowed power can also be trinkets. Yes, however, up until Legion, the tier sets bonus stayed for a while. In Legion, during Emerald Nightmare, your best in slot was, as far as red goes, your best in slot was actually mythic tier set from WoD, from Hellfire Citadel. Like I don't remember if it was the 2 set or the 4 piece, but it's like that was your best in slot because the tier bonus was that much worth it. So you could actually keep your borrowed power on an expansion over. Legion to BFA, they cancelled it, so you couldn't keep your borrowed power into BFA. In Legion, you could still do it to an extent. Eventually, they turned it off. I don't remember if it was like during Nighthold or during Emerald Nightmare towards the end or something, but it's like you could use your tier sets, right? And I believe it wasn't like the best slot was the 4 bonus. I believe it was like you pop wings at the start of the boss, and you switch your gear set before you start fighting the boss or something like that. On pull, basically, before you get into aggro, so you can actually switch your gear. But you could do that, right? Is it degenerate gameplay? Yes, but at least the tier set worked. There wasn't like complete waste of a system. Now everything you do is a complete waste for the future.
That's what I think really irritates people. So how's Dragonflight been for the continuity aspect?
I think
Trash.
continuity is being slightly thrown to the wayside because they realise it's an issue they can't fix now. But
no, continuity has been thrown away. Dragonflight is trying to do what Shadowlands try to do, and that is basically use people's nostalgia against them. In my opinion, the story with the dragons ended in Cataclysm. I don't give a shit about the dragons, aside from fighting some dragons. I don't want to be a dragon, I don't want to be their friend. We finished that story in Cataclysm, and honestly, they should have done what's called Dragon Isles way back when. Like right now, it doesn't even make sense. Like who's gonna be like people saying it's gonna be Gara, Jesus Christ, Garaklond or something like that. Whatever, the big ass fucking dragon, as the main boss, or his son or something like that. And it's like I don't give a shit. Honestly, that they could have expanded the Wrath of the Lich King and given us Garaklond, what's his name? Or in Cataclysm or something. It's like I don't care. Who cares about this anymore, right? It's like it's sort of left field. Like who cares, right? It's like oh dragons, cool. I mean the story with them is over. They gave away their power at the end of Cataclysm. They should be mortals now. They're not even like the immortals that they used to be as dragons because they gave away their essence. They said the dawn of mortals. What happened to the dawn of mortals at the end of Cataclysm? The Age of Mortals or whatever. Suddenly it's the Age of Dragons again. Give me a break.
I think they're treating Dragonflight as a clean slate, and I hope they do, because there's that many issues that have been built up. They're not going to fix them. If they fix them, they're just putting a band-aid on it, right? And what's good for story in this sense is not good for gameplay. If they fix all those things, it'll be a hodgepodge of just tied off loose ends. So with the dragon story being something that's been loosely in the background all these years, I think they could take.
Also, if you think about it, like, who is gonna be the big bad? Right, Garaglan or his sons? Like, can they compare to something like the Jailer? Something like a fucking Titan? Right? It's like, if you look at the trajectory, right? It's like classic. You had dragons, right, and a bit of old gods, right? And then you had the TBC. You had a half-assed Kil'jaeden. Like, he didn't transfer all of his power. It wasn't full. He wasn't fully powered. But you had Kil'jaeden, who's like extremely fucking powerful, right? Wrath of Lich King, you had the fucking Lich King, right? And also in TBC you had Illidan. Then who's stronger than the Lich King? Well, probably an old god controlling a massive dragon. Like, I'm pretty sure, based on the scale, it would make sense that Deathwing was stronger than the Lich King. Well, okay, who's stronger than Deathwing? Well, how about an orc that has the power of an old god because he ate his heart or some shit, right? It's like, okay, that's missed. Right, after that, it's like WoD, Archimond, boom, it's like another power up. After that, you have fucking Titans in Legion, right? After that, BFA. Who was the big bad in BFA? N'Zoth. Okay, makes sense, kinda. I mean, it was a half-ass Titan. Now you're fighting a full-fledged old god. Okay, that's stronger. Shellen's come. Well, you have someone who's supposed to be on the same level as Sargeras, supposedly. In my opinion, like, the fight was kind of like, did not portray that at all, but whatever. Jailer's supposed to be the same level as Sargeras. I don't know how. He's fucking tiny in comparison. Sargeras was the size of a fucking planet, actually bigger than that. But okay, let's say he's the same level as Sargeras. Let's say that actually worked, right? So that clearly, if he's the same power as Sargeras, he's definitely stronger than a full-fledged old god. Now you're gonna get like a big ass dragon. No way. Big ass dragon is the last boss. That's like a power down.
With it as a clean slate, fresh start. This could be the redemption arc of WoW. I genuinely think it could be.
Because Final Fantasy is going through its new.
That's what people said about Shadowlands. Oh, this is going to be the redemption after BFA.
So
that turned out well.
Is not an unheard of thing, but how's World of Warcraft done? How have the community been taking this?
The community seems to be over the moon about it. Now it's.
I do not agree. First of all, the community will always be positive about an expansion. Right? It's like, oh my god, an expansion is coming out. I would say the community is actually not very positive, because when Shadowlands came out, I didn't hear almost any negative stuff about Shadowlands. I didn't hear about like the doubts or whatever. Like, it wasn't as much out there. With Dragonflight, you're hearing a lot of negativity. It's like, what the fuck is this? Who cares about this little construct that was dying? Who's the big bad? What is the cinematic? What is this class? Looks like fucking dog shit, right? It's like a reskinned succubus or whatever, right? It's like, right? There's nothing really like wow in this expansion so far. The only thing I have seen that is like super positive is the talent tree and moving away from borrowed power, which, by the way, moving away does not mean there are no borrowed powers. Just saying.
It's hard to tell, because since the sexual harassment allegations and stuff, their videos have all been bombed into a balloon.
No, the sexual allegation stuff is just a coincidence. In my opinion, the game was good. No one would give a shit about the sexual allegation. Honestly, in my opinion, there was a lot more virtue signaling about the sexual allegation than people actually caring about it. Right? I would say almost no one that I know that was saying it's like, oh my god, this is so horrible, whatever, never even stopped playing Warcraft. It's like, oh well, I'm supporting the devs. Give me a break, okay? People did not care about the sexual allegation. They just said that they do. No one actually gave a shit. They don't know these people. If they gave a shit about sexual allegations, man, I want to see how many of these people go to volunteer in what do you call it, like those shelters for like abused victims or whatever. And no one gives a shit. Like, is it horrible? Yeah, but do they actually care? No, it was just another excuse. It was like the tip of that, like it's just the tip of why people like hate the game. Right? It was just like the last validation for their hate of the game. It was like no one actually gave a shit about the sexual allegations.
Oblivion, right? Now, normally it's like 80% dislikes on their videos, but now it's about like 70%.
Yeah, because all of Shellens was shit, right? The Hopium is coming back with the Dragonflight, so obviously they're going to be more positive. But it's like everything that had to do with Shellens was negative. Like the whole Shellens was a negative experience as a whole, I would say, right? Since BFA was a continuation of BFA, right? It's like and also if you look at Shadowlands trailer, it's probably extremely positive. I need to check. I can't verify, but I'm pretty sure it was very, very positive. The Shellens trailer, and then it just went dumpster fire after that. Regardless, honestly, I believe it would be maybe 75% negative if the sexual allegations didn't happen. That's how much I think the sexual allegations actually played a part. 5% at most.
Likes, which to me says that they're winning people back over and they're showing good faith in doing the right thing this time.
People have
whether they do it or not.
Yeah, very short memory, isn't it? The mob mentality has a very intense but very short lifespan. So when people get really angry about something and really passionate about something, you'll find that it lasts for about 3 months and then dies down. I mean, there are people still campaigning for the whole Coney 2012 thing.
Not even a thing.
Child soldiers in the jungle.
Wasn't Coney 2012 a hoax?
Didn't that happen? Like, no, it's still going on. It's just that once the
I feel like it was a hoax.
Happened, no one cares anymore.
I think the turning point.
I mean, there are.
The 2012 thing might have been the fate of it masturbating in public in front of kids. That could have been the issue.
That didn't help. Yeah, no one can deny that wasn't a positive for the movement. But the idea that any outrage-based movement has about 3 months worth of energy, because the mob don't like to focus on one thing. The mob like to be outraged. So what happens is
you can't be outraged
you'll find
for a long
something
time.
to be annoyed at. Everyone's annoyed at it, and then 3 months later, everyone's annoyed at something different.
Something I was going to.
Why Kellen Face more HD than Josh? How is that possible? Are they not using different cameras in different rooms? Maybe that's possible. Also, yeah, Josh is probably like upscaled, right? Like his camera supposed to be smaller, and he like threw it out.
Everyone's annoyed at something different.
Something I was going to say. When we were in Insomnia, Rage said to me, "There's a new expansion coming out for WoW. Do you raid or anything?" I was like, "Oh, I used to do some very, very high-end raiding." And she was like, "Oh, we're looking for new members for the guild." And I was like, "Nah, not really my thing." This announcement dropped, and I DM'd Rage, and I was like, "You still got that space?" And I restarted my subscription and have power leveled pretty much to max level in 2 days.
Yep. Yeah, I thought a lot. Kira TV, he's said exactly the same on his Discord. They've got their claws back into him. I'm
Kira TV's playing WoW again.
I started World of Warcraft in the Battle for Azeroth phase, so my first experience of it was shit. So I don't really have nostalgia.
Did you say Battle for Azeroth?
Yeah.
Right. You joined at the worst time possible.
I did.
I
would say either now or when the new expansion comes out or the pre-patch for it, give it another chance, because for all the shit that people throw at WoW, there are good elements there.
Yeah.
And in fact, literally last night, we were talking about how we want the player controller to feel for Nightmare World, and a lot of people hadn't played WoW, and I was like, right, I'm pitching that we have like WoW-style controls. Try it, and you'll see what I mean. They all jumped in and they were just like, "Oh my god, I have never played with a player controller that feels this natural and good."
Yeah.
So they've got a lot of good elements there, and hopefully...
Yeah, the gameplay of WoW is smooth as fuck, yes.
Yeah, World of Warcraft has a lot of really good ideas, but this is something that...
WoW is in a good spot right now. Went back and had a blast. For me, Blizzard has lost everything until Bobby's still there and no change has been done. Bobby doesn't make the decisions, man, like on game design. Bobby's there for money, like... Who gives a shit about Bobby? Let's be real. It's another virtue signaling. It's like, bro, who gives a shit? If the game was good, you wouldn't even know if Bobby was. Furthermore, the old code you're talking about doesn't exist. Blizzard had to entirely remake it from scratch when they made WoW Classic because they didn't have the original code anymore. believe it's they had to remake the classic code, but that's because it's not that they remade their current code or like their old code, it's that they build upon it and it was hard to like break it apart or something. Classic is simply the best, really. Classic was the best in 2003. Classic is a fucking trash game. If it wasn't called Warcraft, no one would play it, okay? Plays from 06, left to BFA. I mean, as you made to BFA and not quit a pod, probably did. The patch, yes, I totally know what this guy's talking about. Okay, for me, Blizzard lost everything. Okay, WoW is in a good spot right now. Went back and had a blast. WoW can be a very good game if you just log into a Mythic Plus and leave. There's no point playing it though.
I want to discuss with you specifically.
Aside from if you're just having if you don't care about your character and just want to have some fun, not long-term fun, just some fun, I would say you can play WoW.
World of Warcraft started to go downhill after Wrath of the Lich King when Cataclysm came in. People give a lot of reasons for this. Things like Group Finder being added, which I think is both a positive and a negative. It's a positive for allowing people to find content, and it's a negative for potential
community now.
Fragment the community. But here's a notion that I want to put out to everyone in the chat and everyone that knows anything about World of Warcraft or storytelling. And Cal, you can give me your opinion on this as well. Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne, Reign of Chaos. Started the story of Arthas.
Yeah, Stellan's finished
Wrath of the Lich King finished the
no,
story
no, Josh, you got it all wrong. Wrath of the Lich King was like the preview, right? It's like it was just like the appetizer. Shadowlands actually finished the Warcraft 3 story.
I think the reason World of Warcraft dropped a lot of interest after Wrath of the Lich King is simply because as far as a narrative portion goes.
Yeah, I didn't give a shit about Cataclysm. I didn't even know anything about the dragons.
The main story that people were invested in had ended.
Yes. So I think that was part of the problem, and WoW tried to come up with a solution to that, which sounds great in concept. So they always had this one story, the big bad for each expansion, and they realized, okay, we need somebody who doesn't just enjoy this icy, frosty Lich King story to move on to the next story, the Fiery God. So they started having overlapping stories where halfway through one expansion, a loose end would pop up and start a story that would span to halfway through the next expansion. So you'd have these kind of like, imagine like a video track.
I would say what they did with Wrath was probably their best transition to a next expansion. They finished Wrath of the Lich King with ICC, and then they added the Sanctum or whatever it was called with the dragon, the 2 dragon raids. Almost like no, it was 2. Yeah. No, Malygos was before, right? So it's like you had the other dragon that was basically, if I don't know what the story was, but as far as I understand, it was giving you the idea that the next expansion coming would be with dragons and Deathwing, right? The Twilight Dragons and all that stuff. And I think that was a great transition, and that's technically what Final Fantasy is doing with every expansion. They finish the main story of, let's say, an expansion, then you have 1 or 2 patches of finishing like any lingering storylines that are like built within the expansion, and then the rest of the patches are going into like building up the next expansion or like giving you hints about next expansion or even like the expansion after, right? It's good. Like in Heaven's Ward, you got to meet the Warriors of Darkness, which was an expansion over. It wasn't relevant to Stormblood, but it was relevant to Shadowbringers. They already built Shadowbringers 2 expansions before, but it was on like a small hint at it, right? It wasn't like a big thing, but it's like you got the introduction to the characters, right? But at the end of Heaven's Ward patches, after the Dragonstone War, they built the entrance to Stormblood with how Ilberd, the hawk, whatever his name is, basically attacked Castrum Orions and basically opened the gates to go into Alamigo and then eventually to Doma. Which, by the way, the Doma thing was also built there when what's his name? The big samurai guy went and met Yugiri, and then he took her back because he found their leader.
where there's overlapping
Right.
tracks on both layers all the way across. So that you're never at the end and the start of a story.
And it's totally fine if you build like the side story a bit during, right? It's like you can build old gods during Wrath of the Lich King with what they did with Storm Peaks. That's fine, but it wasn't really relevant. Like the Storm Peak stuff was really relevant to the Cataclysm, right? They could have built something about like more information about old gods and stuff in that story, but I feel like it wasn't enough. Like, they only focused on that one old god, but they could have just given you a more explanations about old gods, how many old gods there are and stuff like that, old scriptures or some shit like that, like hints how many old gods are remaining, like something to to explain about them more.
If you are, you're in the middle of the other story.
Mm-hmm.
And while that sounds great in concept, they couldn't manage it.
No.
Like they really
I'm
couldn't.
8 minutes in and I'm 25-minute video. Okay, I'm gonna
useless.
just.
And this is where all the loose ends came from, because they're like, okay, players weren't invested. After halfway through that story, let's let it fizzle out. But I think the biggest issue that started around Wrath was borrowed power. Your talent system changed to all these talents that you earn, and then next expansion, there's new talents, and you earn them all again, and again, and again. And the gear stopped being a linear treadmill and became like a repeating treadmill, right?
Yeah.
So you've said this before. It's not an expansion; it's a replacement of the existing thing, but you have to start over. That was the issue, and that was the issue for me as well. It was just tiring. It became a chore.
Yeah, because World of Warcraft, as opposed to a lot of other MMORPGs at the time, was such a story narrative-driven game. People wanted to know the fate of Arthas. People wanted to know the fate of Azeroth. They cared about these characters. They cared
Not
about
classic
these people.
though. Classic story was dog shit. But they did add classic story. The general story, kind of poo-poo. No one knew anything about it. Has nothing to do with like Warcraft 3, except very tiny hits in like Old Hillsbred and stuff like that of the Gathering to create the Ashbringer and stuff like that. They were like really cool hints, but it's like you really had to find them and like it's like Easter eggs basically. You really had to like hunt for them. But as far as the story goes in what's it called? I would say the story is not what drew people into Classic. TBC story drew people into it. Wrath of the Lich King story drew people into the Classic, not so much, and then Cataclysm was also like if we didn't have like Noble to explain the lore behind Warcraft, no one would know anything about the story except people who played Warcraft 3 and up until Wrath of the Lich King, and they would not know anything after that.
They told a story, they finished the story.
Yeah.
And when you finish a story, there's a lot of energy that gets depleted. You know, the viewer is happy. It's done, it's told, it's finished. If you keep saying to the viewer,
I'm like,
okay, and now this
going
happens,
to sleep after you masturbate,
and now this happens, it's very difficult to keep someone's attention if the story doesn't end. I like to give an example of the TV show Supernatural. I think Supernatural has 5 fantastic seasons.
Yes.
I think the first 5 seasons of Supernatural tell a
really
perfect
good
story. It was always intended to be a 5-season thing, and then after that,
it was popular.
You can tell that they know that the characters are popular, the world is popular, the lore is popular, and so they're trying to just shoehorn in stuff for you to care about. Someone in the chat has just said the Simpsons syndrome. You know what?
Yeah.
Absolute spot on. The Simpsons told a lot of great character arcs. One of the best character arcs in The Simpsons, without a doubt, Sideshow Bob. Sideshow Bob has such a phenomenally beautiful character arc. And then when they ran out of stories to tell, the characters become almost hollow frameworks to just push stories onto and use them as vehicles to progress. Do you feel that World of Warcraft lost its narrative focus and just became a series of systems to make gamers sit down and play?
Yes, and in fact,
that's a really good take.
Nailed it.
But
Every
actually,
expansion of WoW is literally its own spin-off, and that's true. They all exist in the same universe, but there's no continuity between the two anymore.
Yeah,
it's odd.
And how have because I can think of one game that has faced this same problem and absolutely nailed how to deal with it, and that was Guild Wars 1. Did you ever play Guild Wars 1, Gail?
Long time ago, when it was current.
So, for anyone in the chat who hasn't played Guild Wars 1, the expansions of Guild Wars 1 don't necessarily follow on from the exact story of the previous. What they do is they start a brand new story. And when you start a new expansion, you can start a new character at level 1 and go through and play again. And then when a new expansion comes out, it's a new character at level 1, you carry on through. So you don't need to have played
Sounds really tedious
to go and enjoy Factions, or to enjoy Nightfall, or to enjoy Eye of the North. It was really, really clever the way they've done it.
Only like
I think Guild Wars 2 is very similar in that aspect.
Only if like you can
World
get
of
to
Warcraft
max level
right
fast.
Now has so much lore behind it, and it's been retconned so many times. You're gonna have to help me organise my thoughts in this, Cat. When a new player is exposed to the world of Warcraft for the first time, they hear the epic stories like Arthas, like the Burning Crusade,
if they're
like
lucky,
Sargeras, like the Pandas.
Sargeras.
And then when they actually play the game,
don't get to do it.
They realise that the epic stories they've been told have nothing to do with the game as it is now.
Yeah. In fact,
well, as much as it has nothing to do, but like they try to make Shadowlands like the Jailer kind of have to do with Arthas, right? It's like, and to an extent with Sargeras, but yeah.
I remember how I got into WoW. One of my friends at college was telling me, he was a massive nerd, played it non-stop, and he was telling me about how he just got the legendary mage staff, the dragon-headed staff. I can't remember what it was called, like Syndricosa's something, I don't know. He was going on about the fact that only like 6 people have that staff, and for some reason, to me, that was epic, knowing that there were 14 million players and only 6 people currently had it.
Cataclysm one.
And then I played as the new expansion started, and I wanted to get that staff. That was kind of like my goal, I want to be one of those 7 people now with that staff. And everyone now had it, because the gap between the expansions made that previous important thing so unimportant.
It's almost...
And even though that wasn't a story... It was more of like a player legacy thing, right? That still crushes that player legacy, and
but you couldn't even mog into until recently.
Point, utterly worthless.
Do you think one of the personal achievement angle is many years ago, if you log...
WoW is a TV show that airs twice a year, and if you miss an episode, you can't go back and watch it. It's impossible to binge a backlog, and new viewers are completely lost.
Play World of Warcraft and you got something rare. You thought that might be rare for many, many years. It's part of your personal legend and your personal tale. It's your character's story. Now, because people have seen how this borrowed power system works, when you log on to play World of Warcraft, or when you play an expansion, you know in the back of your mind, everything you do is going to be relevant and important for about the next year or 2. And then a new expansion comes out, and everything you've done is now not relevant and not important again. And to go back to the idea...
Your whole character is not important. Let's look at this. You could quit at 9.0, reach max level, not done anything, quit, start Dragonflight, and you would be about where everyone is almost instantly. Like within like an hour, if that, I would say 30 minutes probably. Like that's how fast, like how irrelevant it all is, right? Like you literally gonna start with everyone else in Dragonflight, except like the Mythic Raiders, who are gonna have gear for the next 7 levels ahead, and then the gear just drops off at just item level wise.
Expansions being super impressive and super important, and people caring. People still really care about Invincible. The mount that you can...
WoW is a TV show that ruins itself in the final season and makes it impossible to rewatch, if not just for something in the background. Kind of what that guy said.
Killing Arthas. That's got such a legend to it.
Yes.
It's got such a cult status as an icon. People consider it the best mount, or the Ashes of Allah.
But not only that, it's like when you killed Arthas, it's like you get the sense that you freed him from his burden, basically. Like when he says like, is it finally over? It's like you kind of understand that who you're fighting is not Arthas at that point, right? But there's but throughout the ICC dungeons, you understand that there's that a part of Arthas, of like the original Arthas, the good Arthas, remains, and that's why the undead are kept in check. Then they're not like going berserk all over the world, right? That's like that was super fucking important to the idea of like what killing Arthas means, right? And then when you kill Arthas, like you kill the Lich King and you liberate Arthas. It's not like you kill Arthas and the Lich King. You liberated Arthas, and that was so fucking massive. And then obviously took a shit on him in Shadowlands, and like he's a fucking wisp that no one even cares about.
Killing Kel'Thas repeatedly. I can't think of anything that new or non-WoW players would care about as much in these new expansions.
Yeah, there's honestly nothing. It's like the legendary
Story-wise, you
system
don't.
was
Yeah.
an amazing system, right? These legacy items that you'd see someone with it and you'd be like, wow, like I've seen 2 of those ever. But then they added that everybody can get a legendary because some people wanted it but didn't get it, which, that's the point of a legendary item. If everybody has it, it's not legendary.
See, I don't mind that everyone can acquire legendary or whatever. However, what I really liked was the appearance of the legendaries of the artifact weapons in Legion with the Mage Tower. What I didn't like though, that the Mage Tower became a fucking joke once like Argus came out because it was so fucking easy. And honestly, even like once Tomb of Sargeras Mythic came out, you could probably like easily do it because you were like 30 item levels above where it is. Because like the Mage Tower was meant for like 890 item level, and by the time you finish Tomb of Sargeras, you're like 920, 925, I think, something like that. And then in Argus, you were like 960, 970. So you can just like literally go in there, and that's how I got most of my. Aside from my Paladin, I did it like 890 to 900. All the other ones I got because my characters were like at 960, 950 item level, and just went and fucking stomped the Mage Tower, 1 shot, 2 shot to the bosses, and that's it. Because like sometimes you don't know the mechanic, and it does hit you hard. But yeah, if they if they scale the Mage Tower, I think the Mage Tower appearances would be far more valuable right now than they are. Just because like you see someone with the glowing like the lightning Ashbringer, right now it's like he probably got it later, right? He probably didn't get it like when it was hard.
Yeah.
So now they had these legendary items that everybody could get, but you could only get 1 of 10 for your class. So then the issue became, well, that guy's got the best legendary for Windwalker Monk. I'm stuck with the shitty one. I want that. So then they let you re-roll which legendaries you get and get multiple.
Not exactly, but yeah.
It's kind of the way Blizzard's doing this is
Wasn't
kind
a
of odd
legendary.
because they're giving something desirable, but then making it not desirable because everybody has it. Because something's only desirable if
no, it
nobody
just
has
became
it, right?
Yeah.
no. The whole point with those ones became such a best in slot. You had to have it to be invited to anywhere, right? It's like because you losing like 40% of your damage. Like that's how much you're like, or 30%, depends on the legendary, right? Like you're losing a lot of your damage if you don't have it. Legendaries back then, like let's say Thunder Fury, is it the best in slot? Yes. Is it mandatory? Is it like that much better? I mean, okay, it is that much better, but it's like it wasn't like the be all end all. You didn't have to have it to do the raids because the raids in themselves were fucking like it doesn't matter. You could have come with like level 58 gear for some of them. So yeah, like the legendaries play a much more vital role now, so they have to be more accessible. All right. The problem I would say is not the legendary or the acquisitions, just that the content demands you to have it.
Yeah, the rare.
Same with like Wad Ring, same with the cloak and mists to an extent, right? It's like you needed the mist cloak to do like be invited to like the high end rating.
Matters.
Yeah,
so
they've really ruined it.
And I don't know if you've looked in, but I was reading Massively OP, one of the MMORPG news sites earlier. Apparently, Activision Blizzard's earnings over the last quarter have plummeted.
Oh,
course.
It has gone. I've got the page up here. Let me just bring this up and have a look, see what we've got. But they
I did say
okay,
Thunder Fury Blessed Blade of the
Blizzard have lost 2 million players.
And they only had 6 million at the height of last year.
Yeah.
So
Thunder Fury was the best example. Entire guilds had to work together. Yes, I mean back in the day. Right now, it's like not that hard to get overall. Like it's tedious, but it's not hard. And again, you did the content to get Thunder Fury, meaning you didn't need Thunder Fury to do the content. Now, in order to do the content, you need the legendary. It's not that you do the content and in order to get the legendary. You have to have the legendary in order to do the content. It shifted what it means to have a legendary.
So they've lost a quarter of their players at least in 1 month. We don't know if it's lower than that. People are estimating what their current players are, and they're estimating around 2.5 to 3 million.
So that the
I
quarter
heard the estimate
one
was like 1.6, but
income
yeah,
from
whatever.
last year and the quarter one income from this year, that
How
is
did
a
they lose that
decrease
much?
of 145 million. Basically, there's a 43% year on year drop off of Activision Blizzard's income, and it is doesn't seem to be recovering. They have lost so many players, and some people will say it's because of the pandemic.
Before we go into the whole pandemic stuff, the reason this is, I would say, the biggest reason why Blizzard is making less money, because they started. It was an interview with Beller. I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. I want to say 3 years ago, where they said it's like you need to stop calculating our the value of World of Warcraft based on the player number, because player numbers are not the best indicator of their income, because of the stores, because of the in-game store, like the mounts and pets and all that stuff. And yes, that's what you need to account for that. The problem is, if you have less players, not only are there less players to use the store, there are also less players who would otherwise buy from the store, because there's less players to show it off to, right? Like, you buy this mount, you want to show it off. There's no one to look at it, it's not worth a goddamn thing. So you actually, like, the more players you lose, it's like before, when you was just counting subs, you would know exactly, like, you lost 100 players, you lost 1,050 bucks, right? Yeah, 1,500 bucks. Jesus Christ, lost 1,500 bucks. Now you lose 100 players, it can be anywhere from 1,500 to 15,000. That's how big of the that's how much money you can lose right now if you lose players, because less players are gonna buy because you have less players, and less players are willing to buy because there's no one to show off to.
Everyone was inside. Everyone was playing World of Warcraft at the time. Shadowlands was really good. Is
No,
it just me?
Final
This
Fantasy.
is me coming from like a non World of Warcraft fanatic. I've played the game, but I'm not super clued up on it.
I mean, you
Has
joined
Shadowlands
BFA.
just stopped mattering?
Yeah,
Like
of course.
that's it. That kind of came and went, and no one
Yeah.
really cared.
There's something Blizzard have been doing in recent expansions, and I'm really not sure why. They have been having content droughts that have been lasting 8 months at a time. And Warlords of
Yeah.
Draenor was the worst. There was a 13-month content drought with no updates. And so you've got these players that are trying to run on this treadmill that doesn't exist.
See, right now, even if Shadowlands has even a bigger content drought, it would still be like, even if it goes for like 20 months of content drought, which I know it probably won't, it would still feel less than WoD, because WoD content, you actually, like, it didn't even have content. You had the raid, yeah, and then you had heroic dungeons, or they have mythic dungeons, mythic zero dungeons. You didn't have mythic plus. Right now, at least you can do mythic pluses as well. The PvP is the same. In my opinion, PvP in WoD was better, more fun, but whatever. But it's like, you still have the PvP. The players who are playing now, and the players who played then, it's like they were okay with either, right? It's like the PvP. If you're playing PvP now, you're okay with the PvP. This is not what's gonna make or break your game. But so you have the same amount of content that you had in WoD that you have in Shadowlands, except in Shadowlands you also have Mythic Plus. You have what's it called? You have the four. What do you call them? Jesus Christ! Covenants. You have the four covenants that you can play around with and try and do funky stuff. You have more stuff to go back to in order to farm mogs and mounts, right? So overall, you have technically more content Shadowlands, like substantially more than you had in WoD. So the 13 months in WoD wouldn't feel a lot worse than 13 months in Shadowlands easily, right? And I'm pretty sure, like, even like 20 months of Shadowlands content drought would be just as fine as having 13 months of WoD content drought.
And they wonder why people are quitting. I don't know if they've downsized and everybody's focused on the next expansion as soon as the first one releases.
100%.
Or what, but there's something
that's
not
pretty
right.
much what
Let me
happens.
try and give what I
Because they
believe,
don't have a
and this
fucking
is something
roadmap.
again I think is really, really, really important right up to Battle for Azeroth. And I've said this before.
What about the massive sourcing? No, the only thing they broke this record with Shadowlands. They had 2 big patches of Shadowlands, but yeah, but like mini patches count as content, unfortunately. Shadowlands died in the first patch, then had to give their money's worth to a bunch of consumers that found it lacking. Shadowlands was the first WoW expansion I skipped. There is no aspect of Shadowlands that's even remotely redeemable. No, that's a bit too negative. As much as I don't like Shadowlands, like that's, I would say the Mythic Plus, they just need better affixes. Like do a affix rotation. Don't throw all, like not just like they have the Mythic Plus 10 rotation, which is like not a rotation, Mythic Plus 10 affix, which is seasonal. Rotate the fucking Mythic Plus stuff. Like, oh, this week is gonna have this, the next week it's like everything is predicted, like which week is gonna be the easiest week to push, right? That's not what I mean. Add a lot more affixes and fucking rotate them. You're gonna have a month of this, you're gonna have a month of that, but like make them interesting and fun, right? The 1 week affix means you're just gonna skip that week. Not a big deal. Just gonna do your 10, 15 pluses, and that's it. You're not gonna play around it, right? Make it more interesting, make them more balanced, make them less annoying, make them more rewarding. Even change the plus 10 affix, combine it with other shit. I don't know. The best example that's not example, the best idea I ever had for Mythic Plus affix, and there's so many more. First of all, storming sucks ass, so like, fuck that shit. But the best one of the affixes that I thought of that could be cool would be similar to explosion. However, if you blow it up, you get some boon. You either get a heal, you get a damage boost, or something like that. If you don't kill it, it doesn't fucking wipe you. It makes the monster stronger, or it heals the monster, something like that. You don't need to go like super ham, but it's like that. Just that would make it so it's like, well, look, there's an explosion happening, but we're about to kill this mob anyways. And by the time we kill and go to the next mob, the explosion won't matter, won't give us, like the boon will run out. So there's no point wasting time in killing, and then you can just ignore it, right? You can ignore certain mechanics if you see like they're not going to be very helpful. And it's like it gives you a bit of like options um, while running the dungeon. Like something like that, something like what do you call kiss and curse type of mechanic. Right now, all of the mechanics you can't ignore them, right? It's like if you don't have the right comp, quaking can be fucking disastrous. If you don't have the right comp, what's it called? Explosion can be disastrous. You can't have massive pulls, right? If you have what's it called? Uh, the one where like the mobs, if they die, they make the other mobs stronger, right? You have that mechanic, you can't ignore it. There's no absolutely no way. It's like you can't like if you pull a group of mobs before you kill that last mob that is taking forever and it's like fuck my life, just fucking die. You can't pull the next mob. Why? Because everyone's gonna get empowered. Right? It's like shit like that. It's like it's just annoying. It just makes the gameplay not fun. Make better affixes for Mythic Plus to make it fun.
On stream, but
It's
I want
just
to
all
get your
punishing.
specific opinion, and everyone in chat, I want your feedback on this as well. World of Warcraft do something amazing with their box art and their titles of expansions. They use the box art and the title to tell a story. And even if you don't know the game, you can pick up the box,
Except
read
classic.
the box art, look at the picture, and you can immediately know the story. The Burning Crusade. You pick it up, you see a massive demon on the front. The Burning Crusade. Are these demons going on a crusade? Are they marching across the land? Would you say that's a pretty accurate description of what the Burning Crusade actually is?
Fairly accurate, yeah.
Brilliant. Demons are coming back.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with Outland.
There's a guy in the front with a big icy sword. I'm guessing he's the Lich King, and he's probably pretty wrathful. Is that, again, pretty accurate?
Yeah.
All right, cool. You can do this with every single expansion. Right up until Battle for Azeroth. You can pick up Mist of Pandaria. Oh, there's a panda on the front. Maybe the expansion's about Pandaria. Maybe that's them. You can do it with Cataclysm. There's a huge dragon on the front. Maybe he's going to cause something cataclysmic. You pick up Battle for Azeroth, you've got a Horde face and an Alliance face fighting. Nowhere in that title or on that box art does it tell you Mayan Incan-inspired dinosaurs.
If you knew more about it, you would say something like, nowhere on the box does it tell you N'Zoth, old gods. underwater fighting, anything like that. But at the same time, well, TBC Burning Crusade, I guess to an extent, but it's like Illidan wasn't really a part of the Burning Crusades. It's like there was just a lot of fel, but it's like as far as TBC and telling the story of the expansion, not really, but it is something that can hook you into it. Wrath of the Lich King was kind of okay. Cataclysm was kind of okay. You have a dragon, bunch of fire. It's a Cataclysm, so you're assuming the dragon causes end of the world, something like that. Mists of Pandaria, and there's a panda. Like, okay, so it's like go to this panda land, I guess, but it's like it doesn't really tell you anything aside from like, hey, you go to this is where you're gonna be, right? So it's like I get his point, but it's like some of it like not the strongest examples. Right, Battle for Azeroth, in my opinion, was misleading because everyone thought it was going to be a massive faction war, but that was like not even Act 1, was like literally like the first week of the expansion, first like 2 weeks or something, and then the patch hits, and it's like, oh, need to fight this old god facility, this Titan facility that's filled with old gods or something. Right, it's like, and there you go, right? It's like you didn't get to fight the faction leaders or anything like that. That wasn't great. Shadowlands is just like Bolvar, and yeah, so like the last two, like BFA and Shadowlands, really don't tell what this like remotely what the story is about. The other ones at least can give you a hint of like where you'll be or something, but
Nope.
So when I bought Battle for Azeroth, I was actually expecting a battle for Azeroth. And when I started playing it, I'm like, there's a lot of dinosaurs in this kind of South American themed Inca battle. I had no clue that was what I should expect.
Yeah, they've definitely dropped the ball with that. I'd even argue Legion to a certain extent. If you don't know about WoW, Legion doesn't mean anything to you. You see Illidan on the front, and the word Legion. It doesn't mean anything.
So let's have a look at the Shadowlands box art. I want to
but
work
Legion was just a nostalgia overload for Warcraft players. It's like I feel like Legion was something they kept in their back pocket to unleash at some point where it's like, okay, we're losing too many players. Okay, time to bring out the big guns. We held this in our back pocket. Now it's time to use it. And I think that's what they kind of tried to do with Shadowlands, relating it to Arthas, but they fucked it up because there was no Arthas in Shadowlands. And I refuse to say that the Wisp was actually Arthas.
But I just can't remember it. That's how memorable this is. Okay, Shadowlands box art. There is a guy with a hammer and a big pauldron, and he's all kind of like ashen, and there's like lava. Is he Mr. Shadowland?
I haven't seen the box art, so let me have a look.
I'm not even taking the piss. Guys in the chat, someone's just gone, no, that's Bolvar.
Who is Bolvar?
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, that's not the box art though. The box art is the Spire of Dominion, is it? It's Ice Crown Citadel.
Oh, that's even worse. But yeah. I have no idea what that is then. Okay, so who's that guy?
Well, it is Bolvar, but you wouldn't know that, and it wouldn't mean anything to you.
Fill me in. Who's Bolvar?
So Bolvar is one of the people who was helping fight the Lich King in... I'm going to really dumb this down because you don't know WoW, but he was helping fight the Lich King at the end, and when they killed him, he basically says that someone must always wear the crown. And they don't explain why.
Who wore the crown before Arthas?
Because
if I remember correctly, in in the original
there was
Warcraft
none.
3,
it wasn't Azul, it was just a crown.
There wasn't anyone wearing the crown. Was the Lich King wearing the crown? No one, technically. Surely you just picked the crown up. Because you got the sword, didn't you? Was there actually someone wearing the crown in Warcraft 3?
I believe there was always someone wearing the crown.
Okay.
It wasn't wearing
because the line is there must always be a Lich King.
Okay, cool.
Right? And so when the Lich King was killed, Bolvar took one for the team, took a fat L, put the helmet on, sat in the chair.
And does that sort of make sense? No, but whatever.
Now that Sylvanas removed his crown in the opening cinematic and shattered it.
We need to talk about Sylvanas because characterizing is all over the shop.
Yeah. But that's how that happened. So they were at the top of Ice Crown Citadel. She ripped the helmet in half and it just shattered the sky and the Shadow Realm opened up above.
For reasons.
Okay,
that's it.
Cool. going on, and that's the Shadowlands.
Yeah, that's the Shadowlands, and that's why Bolvar is on there, because he's helping like do some shit or another. I don't know.
You know, there's a problem in anime.
Supposed to.
And
know.
this, I think, World of Warcraft is actually suffering from a very anime style writing problem right now. You beat the boss. Oh, I was only working for someone else. So you beat him.
Boss.
But I was only working for someone else. So you beat him. But I was only working for someone else. Like, eventually you get to the guy that's at the top.
Mm-hmm. No, you don't. You never.
If you don't ever get to the guy that's at the top, if the organization keeps growing, then the audience stop caring.
Yeah.
And you also have this thing
what's happened with Sargeras.
Yeah, you say, I was bad, but actually compared to the next guy, I'm good. And then you go and beat the next guy, and they're like, oh yeah, well,
I was just doing what was necessary.
I was actually trying to stop this person, and then you get them, and you're like, well, actually, I was trying to stop. Who's good in World of Warcraft? Is there any good guy?
I was going to say Uther, but he's bad now, I think.
It's seriously.
I mean, Uther is bad and good, but I can't say he's like actually good.
Someone in chat can tell me if Uther's gone bad.
And like the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, who are actually just good.
There's no sugarcoating it. The story for Shadowlands is shit.
Uther went bad and then went good. Uther sounds like milk.
Spoiled it for me.
Uther was milk that became rotten and then became cheese. They were like, "This is good. It's gone quite bad." Hey, he pulled it around.
Edmertel was pretty good.
Fantastic. Yeah. Don't leave it too long; it'll go rotten and then get moldy. Uther has like a cheese style.
I would say only Anduin has always been good.
Who was that mother construct in the cave that was in a raid? They were super important, weren't they? I'm sure they're going to appear again.
I know the one you're on about, where it's like the walled off, like Star Wars Force gates as they open and you move through. I don't know. We one-shot her, so I never actually read any of the voice lines.
Fair play. Okay. And we've beaten the Shadowlands. The dragons have come back. Are the dragons bad?
Do you know what it reminds me of? You talking about the but that's my boss, and then the boss above. That just reminds me of Yu-Gi-Oh! After the first season, where it's like, I've got a blue-eyed white dragon. Well, I've got a two-headed blue-eyed white dragon. Well, I've got a seven-toed red-eyed blue dragon.
Yeah.
Is World of Warcraft suffering Yu-Gi-Oh?
DBZ, man. Frieza to sell.
Yeah.
I hope the next World of Warcraft expansion is entirely on motorcycles. That's what I want.
Sargeras 2 Demon Lord Boogaloo. That's what it's going to
be. 2, Return of the original guy.
I mean, they're gonna bring him back. It's like Sargeras is literally what Illidan was for them in TBC. Sargeras is gonna be the back pocket pick when they're like, well, we're out of ideas and we're losing players. We need something big. Yo, remember that Titan guy we locked up in? Let's get him, and he brings Illidan too. So that's like a double whammy. Yeah, let's do that, and that's probably like the expansion, if not after Dragonflight, like the one after the expansion that is after Dragonflight. So that's gonna be Sargeras.
Oh, a creep going on.
At which point, by the way, the dragon race, whatever they're called, you will be able to be hunters, be able to be warriors, mages, shamans, maybe druids. They should be able to be druids, I guess. Shamans, druids, mages, rogues. Let's see, what else can they be? They won't be able to be paladins, even though technically Dragon Knight should be a paladin, but whatever. Who else are they gonna be? We have Hunter, alright? So yeah. No, probably not priest, but honestly they added priest to every class. So priest. Not warlocks. They don't like demons. Yeah, I think those 7 plus the invoker. So 8 classes that they will be able to be: warrior, rogue, mage, priest, hunter, druid, shaman, invoker. That's my prediction. Next expansion or the expansion after, that's what the dragons can be.
Yeah.
Who? Sylvanas. Good? Bad? Irrelevant? Fill me in.
She's like that ex that you keep going back to because you think she's changed.
Right. Gotcha.
And then you instantly realise why you shouldn't have gone back to her.
I see it. Okay, cool. So, wasn't there a bit of a thing about whoever wrote Sylvanas had a bit of a thing for her? Like, there was a writer accused of having like a bit of a self-insert thing going on.
Yeah, they tried to like project themselves into Sylvanas. I heard about this and it was very weird. Very weird.
No,
I don't know any more about that though.
Yeah, it
Doubt
doesn't
it.
seem to be doing super well. So
I love that they're blaming
Sylvanas was
Danuzer.
bad, and then
No,
she
it
went
was
good, and then
Fasapi.
she was
Yeah.
bad again, and now she's good, and now the dragons are back. Do we need to care about the dragons
He
coming
made her
back,
as a
or do you think
wife.
this will be
Sylvanas.
irrelevant in
Doubt
like
it.
2 expansions time?
I actually think that the dragons coming back is setting up for an incredibly big story arc. So anyone who knows about the Dragonflight from books and like the side quests early on will know how big of a deal they are. So very heavily tied to the Emerald Dream, which is an expansion that was teased a long time ago. It was going to be the 3rd expansion, but because of technical limitations, they couldn't do it then. However, people have been begging for it, and the Emerald Dream is basically Azeroth untouched.
Okay.
Now, think of the possibility from WoW's perspective of an untouched Azeroth. This is going hand in hand with their reset everything kind of thing. Because it's in the lore. It wouldn't be an out-of-the-box random, haha, we're resetting WoW. It would be justified that if you go back to the Emerald Dream.
Do you think World of Warcraft has hit a bit of a snag? Because as you said,
I think this guy's I don't think this guy's the best person to talk about lore, but yeah.
Yeah.
What does an MMORPG, and I can think of one, and I think you'll agree as well, I can think of one MMORPG that has added content for many, many, many years, and people still care about the land, not necessarily the stories that are being told within the land. And I would say that's RuneScape.
Good old RuneScape. Absolutely.
What does World of Warcraft need to do to be a land again, instead of just a vehicle for driving expansions?
It's really funny that you mentioned that, because in our last developer meeting, this is actually the comparison we made, World of Warcraft to RuneScape. RuneScape is so focused on horizontal progression that every place matters and has different like level of content in it. You can go back to Lumbridge and do something at max level that you can only do at max level.
Yeah.
You can go to like an end game, and this is really it. The locations aren't level based in RuneScape.
No.
Whereas in WoW, they are.
I think in RuneScape, the experience is level based, but what they've decided to do is spread multiple experiences for various level ranges all over the world. Yeah. So where you start,
I'm not going to talk about RuneScape because I don't know much about it. 10, I just 20, can't 30, 40, stand playing it.
To 99. And you go somewhere at RuneScape and you do something, and you may need to be level 20 to be relevant, but when you come back at level 90, there's something new. RuneScape to me is a world that has adventures for various levels placed in it.
Yeah.
Whereas World of Warcraft seems to be a very linear journey from A to B to C, where when you are at a certain level range, you are encouraged to be at a certain place. And then when you get to the max level, you're encouraged to repeatedly do this. Someone pointed out, I think it was you and me having this discussion a while ago, Cal, in old school RuneScape, Barrows items came out 15 years ago for Barrows items. Torag, Varak, Darok. You know, we still know the names. And we still know the names because they're actually still relevant.
Yeah.
Items that came out 15 years ago in old school RuneScape are still not only relevant, but good.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything from World of Warcraft that came out 15 years ago that's not only relevant, but still actually good. Possibly Invincible the Mount, because of how rare it is.
That's cosmetic, so that doesn't even matter. Because cosmetics will always be relevant.
Someone's just put OSRS didn't come out 15 years ago, and they are irrelevant in the main game. Barrow's armor isn't irrelevant in the main game, mate. Barrow's armor is still a very important step. Where is it level 70 you need to be defense for Barrow's armor?
Yeah.
Yeah, 70 defense is a really, really good thing to have.
And some people still use that at level 90 because for certain situations it is.
WoW Classic was great with 1 to 60 levels and lands to explore. Now everyone boosts and rushes to dungeons because the gameplay sucks. I don't understand these guys who saying Classic is a good game. It's really not. It's a really bad game. If it wasn't called Warcraft, no one would play it when it was re-released in 2020 or some shit like that, 19. It's really a bad game. No one actually plays the game. Like, if you look at like people who are playing it, their max level and how they get there, mage boosts, dungeon farming, like they did not actually play World of Warcraft Classic. World War Classic is a shit game. No one plays it. No one levels it how they should. Maybe like the first run through, but after that, you don't fucking play it the way that it was meant to be played. No one gives a shit about WoW Classic, right? It's like, what do people do in WoW Classic? PvP maybe, ganking people who are going to dungeons because they're assholes, right? It's like, oh, World PvP is dead in retail. World PvP was always garbage. You just didn't have any other output. Like, didn't have anywhere else to use it at that point, right? Once fucking BGs came out, no one was doing World PvP. It has nothing to do with World PvP being good or bad. It's just that it's not efficient. Like, yeah, you can be the asshole who starts the PvP because you can gank somebody, or you have more friends on your side than the person you're ganking. But World PvP was never really fun, right? I never found it fun to kill somebody that I know I'm gonna kill easily. Nor did I want to be ganked by people when I'm not prepared. There's nothing fun about it. It's like, oh, you always need to be aware. Maybe there are players nearby who are gonna gank you. I don't wanna. I just wanna sit back, relax, kill some mobs, and go to the next place, finish my quest, and get to max level, right? And it's like, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of players like me. World PvPs was always dog shit. I want a PvP when I want a PvP. Guess what? If there's only World PvP and you want a PvP and you can't find other players, you're not having fun either. Okay? Like, so dumb. Yeah, either way, outside of PvP. Okay, WoW Classic was great with 1 to 60 levels and lands to explore. No one gives a shit about that. Back when Classic was Classic and no one knew anything and nothing was explored, yes, the exploration was fun. You cannot get that now. Like, everyone knows everything about the world. People have been using flying mounts to discover almost everything since Cataclysm, and the zones that weren't kept through the expansions have also been thoroughly checked upon. I just said like that. It's like there's nothing to explore anymore.
It's really good.
Yeah, if I'm going, tanking in God Wars, having Barrow's armor, I'd be fine with that. Guthans are still really good for AFKing, absolutely. And Swampletics. Cal, you've seen the Swampletics series, haven't you?
I have. I've seen it all the way through. I love it.
I can think of one or two things like that in World of Warcraft. The guy that played the panda that picked the flowers all the way to max level without choosing either Horde or the Alliance.
Yes.
What is it about RuneScape that allows so much content to be made? Because YouTube MMORPGs, RuneScape dominates it. There's so many RuneScape series of it.
It's because there are many, many ways to play the game. And none of them are right, none of them are wrong. But you can get creative with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the issue with WoW. You are fed down this pipeline that they want you to go down. And you have to, realistically. You'd be insane not to. You're just harming your own experience. But RuneScape, you just do whatever you want. And I think that's something that you can leverage as a game designer.
I dislike sandbox MMORPG games. And, I think that's actually wrong.
I disagree about what he said, because you can play WoW however you want, just not going to be relevant. And I'm pretty sure if you play RuneScape however you want, you will also not be relevant. The question is RuneScape more of a, like, the draw of the game is more of the stuff you can do in it, or are you trying, because in my opinion the combat in RuneScape is pretty fucking dog shit. Killing a massive boss is not the appeal of RuneScape, and I think that's the biggest problem. It's like, if you know that you're going into a game where killing massive bosses and killing certain mobs is not the main appeal, you already come there with the expectation of doing other shit. Pretty much, right? With World of Warcraft, you're coming for the appeal of downing massive monsters, downing massive bosses, doing content with 19 other people, and all that shit, all that jazz, and like getting stronger and seeing your numbers bigger. If you know why you're playing that game, because like you could talk about RuneScape, it's like, oh, it's such a good game in that regard. RuneScape has not even close the amount of players that WoW has, because the players who are playing RuneScape are not playing it for the same reasons they're playing WoW. So saying that's like you need to have this stuff in World of Warcraft, yeah, maybe. But do you really? Is that even an appeal in the game? Are the players in WoW really looking forward to it? With all the farming you have to do for WoW to be relevant in Raid and Mythic Plus, do you think people are gonna have time to do the other shit? Now, if they make the farm a lot easier and add all this side content that you can do, like housing and whatever, build your own house, I know mogs and all that shit. I know professions making them relevant. I don't even know, like having a what's called a golden saucer in WoW. People would not have time for it in WoW, in my opinion, because of how demanding the grind is in order to be relevant for your content.
I thought I disliked sandbox games.
I do.
This is the weird thing. I thought
I mean, I like
I
and dislike.
disliked sandbox. And the reason I thought this was because the majority of sandbox games I played didn't do anything to help the player find a goal or to set any expectations or to help me get into it. But the more I play it, is RuneScape is actually very close to being sandbox.
I would say it is.
You can do it.
It absolutely is.
I mean, you can't manipulate the world and you can't build things, but you can do a hell of a lot, and you've got no choices, and there's no classes specifically. But the reason I think I like RuneScape is because there's so much stuff you can do in it, and there's so much stuff that encourages you, like the quests. The quests are a massive adventure line.
Yeah.
I really would like it if more sandbox games had maybe not quest systems in there as much, but at least direction to take, to go on. It's super non-linear. That's the best way to do it.
That is the best way. That is the best way to put it, and that's another thing that we used RuneScape as a comparison for. We want players to just be able to roam off aimlessly.
Yeah.
Find an old lady in a house and start a huge chain of quests.
Yeah.
But meaningful storytelling quests that fill the fancy of something, right? You want to try and fill every fancy in a game where you want to be a pirate, go off, do the pirate quests.
Yeah.
You want to be like a firefighter in a city that's burning down, go do that. And I think RuneScape's a good benchmark for like freedom, breeding creativity from the player.
Now, talking about if you want to be this class, go and do that quest. I love that idea. I was talking about, class design and quest design with someone for a long time, and I realised that actually Realm of the Mad God did this. I hadn't even played Realm of the Mad God at the time, and I realised it was doing it. So someone said to me, what should I do with classes in the game? And I suggested this. Have some basic classes that characters can start as, and then have class quests. Like, you're a warrior, you go and speak to the warrior trainer, you go through all the warrior quests. When you finish them, you become like a certified warrior. And then you've got a botanist quest, and you go through, do the botany. And when you've got top warrior and top botany, you can speak to someone else and they say, hey, I see you've got these, let's combine them, and you now become an alchemist or something like that, or a combat alchemist. Yeah. I love the idea of quest lines building on quest lines which unlock extra classes, but those classes aren't necessarily best in slot or, uber powerful. They're just different. They play in a horizontal way, and Realm of the Mad God does that. I think Star Wars Galaxies did that. I want to talk about a game that does that we have to dig into the history of.
See, the problem is, it's like what he's talking about is great, in my opinion. That's like really interesting and stuff like that. The problem is, it's only great for a very short amount of time. Once people figure everything out, you're gonna have a guide of how to do everything, and then boom. These concepts are really good for single player games, because you can explore it indefinitely and never look at a guide. As soon as you put it on an online platform and people want to be competitive, they're going to look at guides, going to do research, and like they're not actually going to play the game to discover, they're going to look at YouTube to discover. And I think that's the biggest problem with like what online games are facing. All these like mysteries and stuff that the game solves. Like Elden Ring was really fun for the first 2 weeks in terms of just exploration, like finding out everything. Now you just go to the wiki and like okay, let's see, I want to try and make this build, or like let me look at what this guy is doing. It's like, okay, looks interesting, I'm gonna do that too. And then it's like, which items do I need to do, which quest do I need to do, how do I do this quest, blah 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 blah, boom, your build is ready, but you didn't even play the game to make it. You just followed the guide, you just like zoomed through the content, you didn't even actually like explore or experience the game.
I don't know how much you know about it. In the chat, who played Dragon Fable, one of the Artix games?
I didn't, actually.
Have you ever played Adventure Quest? The old Flash animated
Oh yes, I have.
Yeah. I honestly think Adventure Quest is one of the most important online RPG games ever made.
Which I played
Adam
Adventure
Bond,
Quest.
the guy that made the whole thing,
And let me see.
I am so in awe of what he has done. Now I've taken the piss and I've made bad reviews of both Adventure Quest 3D and Adventure Quest Worlds, but I don't want
I
anyone
feel like
to
I played
ever
it a bit.
think that this means I don't respect
Yeah, I
Adam
played it.
Bond,
I
the
didn't play it for
absolute
long,
utmost.
like I think like
Let
20
me know
minutes
about
most.
Adventure Quest, Cal.
And I was like, fuck it.
I know one thing actually that many people didn't. Do you know that it wasn't database driven?
No, do tell.
In the early days of Dragon Quest, you could completely modify your money client side. Everything was client side.
I have heard of people explaining that. Yeah, people you're giving yourself max gold and stuff like that. I never did it because I was a kid at the time, but no, I have definitely heard of people doing it.
Oh, I did that
Give yourself
all
max
the
and
time.
everything.
I sold that gold to people who didn't know it was client side.
Excellent. See, hustle culture.
Hustle.
But I absolutely loved Adventure Quest as a kid. It started my obsession with online RPGs, and I thought, here is a game that saves my progress, that I can log onto from any computer. Here is a game that it started that fire burning in me of online RPGs. And Adventure Quest was great. And then Dragon Fable came around, and then Mech Quest, and then finally Adventure Quest 3D and Adventure Quest Worlds. But I was reading an interview with Adam Bond. I mean, I've read so much about this guy. I am in awe of the things he's achieved. This guy made about 1,000 Flash games
I have heard this.
before settling on Adventure Quest. And he made thousands. He was in school and he would go home, and over the next 3 or 4 days, he'd make a very simple Flash game of a character moving around, a very simple RPG, a very simple fighting game. He did so much stuff. And finally, he made Adventure Quest and he showed it to his friends, and his friends went, "This is really good, put it online." And he didn't think it was great, but he tried it and he put it out there, and it succeeded. And I keep telling people, if you want to succeed, do a lot of stuff.
Try fail forwards.
Yeah, fail forwards
is the best method to learn game dev. Yeah. It really is.
And Adam Bond's his attitude toward work. I don't know the guy specifically or personally. I would love to chat to him sometime, but his attitude toward creating deserves the utmost respect. And I made a video a while back saying that you need to have 5 things before you need to make an MMORPG. A franchise, money, time, experience. Adam Bond had all 5. Cal, what franchise do you think is going to be the next Adventure Quest, Dragon Fable Online, Adam Bond? What's it going to be next? It might be
League of Legends.
Yeah, might be League of Legends.
League of Legends, hands down. Like they've got everything, and now with the Arcane series, they've gone above and beyond. They've got everything they need. I think it'll be that.
Do you think Arcane is a setup for an MMORPG? Because I do, because I know they're making an MMO, and when I was watching Arcane, I was seeing all the stuff that's going to go into an MMO. You've seen Arcane, haven't you?
Yeah, faction.
I mean, I can say it about the League of Legends journal that they used to have, and I can see that going into an MMORPG. It doesn't really matter. It's like you can throw anything into an MMORPG, really. Even just League of Legends as a whole doesn't even need Arcane. Go into an MMORPG, they have so many characters that already have a backstory. You just connect the dots and boom, that's it. My question is, how are they gonna, like, what is the MMORPG gonna be? Like, how are the classes gonna work? That's my biggest problem with that game, because like I would assume like Jinx, Vi, Asadin, Malzahar, all these guys are gonna be like hero class like you can't actually like be them, right?
Setup.
So, like, what are you gonna do?
Transport
just like
ships.
regular.
They even had a line, if this gate doesn't get there, then the wine's
I would like for them to go more Lost Ark, the sense that's like avoiding the Holy Trinity of tank, healer, DPS, and do something with that. I think the Holy Trinity has been. I think it's like we had enough of it. I think Lost Ark does it better because everyone is responsible for their own health. But yeah. But as a whole, I mean, I don't have high expectations of Riot MMORPG, not because they don't make decent games, but because there hasn't been any good MMORPG release that was good for 1.0. It was good like 2.0, maybe 3.0, but never for 1.0.
Gonna go off. Okay, cool. So we've got your fast travel, fast transport.
I think they already know that they had the foundations for an MMO. They just needed to open it up to the non-MOBA crowd. And Arcane did that. I don't like League of Legends.
No.
That's what
I really don't. I've tried it and I hate it.
Smart man.
But if
Smart
they
man.
bring out an MMO based off of Arcane, I will play it.
Yeah, they have built really so much lore into that show already.
They did. I just didn't like any of it.
So let's just circle back to the World of Warcraft bringing out the next expansion.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy XIV's main story that it's been working on.
The reason I didn't like Arcane, this is the funniest thing. The reason I didn't like Arcane is probably the reason that people like Arcane. I didn't like Arcane because I know the characters from League of Legends. People who watch Arcane didn't play League of Legends. If I watched Arcane, didn't play League of Legends, I would actually care more about the story than if I played League of Legends, because I don't care about Jinx and Vi in League of Legends. I really don't. I don't even know their backstory. Like I know from Arcane, but I never read their fucking lore thing. Like I just don't care about these characters as a whole. Caitlyn, Jace, Heimerdinger. I'm assuming one of them was actually Senna, like just how she looked. The one that was like making out with Jace. Maybe later on she'll be Senna. I don't know. But it's like I just didn't care about any of those fucking characters. Like none. And honestly, let's be real. Vi's and Jinx's dad, the bartender, that was Graves. We all know it was.
Years and years has ended with Endwalker.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think FF14 is going to have to do differently as far as starting a new storyline goes to make sure it doesn't fall into the World of Warcraft?
I like League, but not Arcane, yeah, basically.
Here's the next big bad.
I genuinely do not know, because I've seen so many MMOs that have survived fall into that, and because they are a linear progression, I really don't know. And they can't just instantly switch up to like horizontal progression without a good reason to. So I think they'd have to go for a good setup, a good change, and while they're changing the story, like shift to horizontal gameplay.
See, people in the chat are saying some great things, and I'm absolutely on board. They're not going back to the next big bad. They're just going back to small adventures. So the next Final Fantasy expansion might not have the world in jeopardy. It might not have a cataclysmic, reality-ending event. It might just be a couple of local villages or local towns in trouble.
I would say the next big thing for Final Fantasy is gonna be exploring the other worlds, but in those worlds, like, because you have 12 more reflections. Yeah, you have 11, because the first we already kind of dealt. You have 11 more reflections that you can explore, and they're working on what's called Y'shtola is working on like going into them, right? So traveling between worlds, and I feel like multiple things can happen. One, you can have a war between reflections, or a cataclysmic event in one of the reflections. However, to get to the cataclysmic event, you will be going on a lot of adventures to discover all that stuff. Yes, you don't need a big bad right away, kind of like how Final Fantasy had it. You had a big dragon, then you had Xenos, who also became a big dragon. Then you had Emmett Selk, and then you had what's called Meteon. Just because you have all of these, and it's like, yeah, they are increasing in power. I would say Meteon was not actually stronger than M itself. Meteon was stronger than M itself because of the environment where she was, rather than because she was actually stronger, right? So it's like, in that sense, at least you're taking away the how powerful the player is, and it's more like because of the environment the player is in. That's why the enemy is stronger or weaker, right? So I think that was great. Well, that's true regarding Meteon. Meteon was because right now with WoW, it's like you always have to go for the bigger bad. With WoW, the bigger bad was not necessarily stronger. She was just in a very advantageous situation.
It might just be.
But there's so many places
smaller.
Final Fantasy can go. You can have literally the next 10 years just in one other reflection. We honestly didn't even explore everything there is to the source, let alone the reflections. So it's like the next 10 years can be really fucking massive. I believe we're going to go to two different, in the next 10 years, at least two different reflections, if
They're
not
more
all of them.
personal, and I think that's a really nice place for a game to be in. It doesn't need to be the next most powerful thing. It just needs to be, we've saved the world, but the world's not perfect yet. Let's go deal with the small problems.
You can only save the world so many times before you start to just see the signs of it repeating.
Yeah, I mean, that's
so
wild
they
for
do
you.
need to do something.
The Simpsons started off as a parody of the American nuclear family. There are no shows on TV anymore that are the American nuclear family, which means The Simpsons is a parody of a genre that no longer exists, which means it has become a parody, it has become a genre unto itself. Let's loop
I guess that's fair.
MMORPGs.
Yeah.
The Simpsons has run out of things to parody. Have MMORPGs ran out of stories to tell?
I don't think
Has Warcraft ran out of stories to tell?
So I think in a way yes, because there's the typical trope of fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by them parodying the D&D trope, I don't know, whatever old text-based game you used to play, they've done all of it. Mm-hmm. Like fantasy has been fulfilled. There is no more fantasy that they can pull from. So they're now doing a mix of repeating that same fantasy and trying to introduce their own. But people only play WoW to fulfill a fantasy that they couldn't in a text-based or D&D game. But there is no previous version of this new fantasy. They're making it.
You know how with
WoW has one of the best tools to make any here's an interesting fantasy that they could make. They have the Caverns of Time, which is the best tool that I was just talking about. They have the Caverns of Time. You can literally replay Warcraft 3 in Caverns of Time. Boom. You don't need to add anything. All the story's already there. People already know what the story is. You get to replay it as an MMORPG. And you can use what they call it, the Warfront tech that they had to make those to do those dungeons. Boom, there you go. You can literally make a whole expansion from that. You have a base of operations in the what's it called, and you just expand from there until you finish the Warcraft 3 campaign. I can easily make it can be a side thing that you do for fun, or you can actually just make a whole expansion with it. And it's like people already know who the big bad is, but they get to experience it in a way that they didn't experience it before.
Game of Thrones, the first 5 seasons of the TV show followed the books pretty much spot on, and then they ran out of books, and so they got TV writers in. Yeah. And the way that TV writers write stories is so phenomenally different to the way book writers write stories. TV writers write stories for the here and now. They write it for the character-based plots, and they write it with plot armor so no one can die. But book writers write about the land, they write about the political struggles, the ideological struggles. They tend to look at the overall journey of the world.
I love that he's just explaining, like, okay, so Final Fantasy is a book writer and WoW is a TV show.
Whereas TV writers look at the journey of the characters.
Yes.
Do you believe that after Wrath of the Lich King, maybe after Cataclysm, possibly up to Battlefront,
do you think that FF is doing the smart thing by bringing in the single player aspect of gaming into their MMO more, keeping in mind the goal isn't to make a better MMO, just to make a better game? I would say he's not someone that watches my stream, whatever, because no one does. But I would say yes. I would say Final Fantasy is doing the smart thing by bringing in the single player aspect. I would say, for the most part, people are sick of playing with other players all the time. Right now, you cannot play WoW, or like anything that is remotely relevant in WoW, without other players, which takes a very long time to form as well. Mythic Plus, literally 10 to 20 minutes to form a group. You run one key, If the key is not successful, like let's say first wipe, people start leaving. That's like 30 minutes to an hour already wasted because you have to reform and do it again. Your key is lower, so might actually be harder to find people now if it's like door 15 to 14. Doing the dungeon requires 40 minutes. I would say dungeons should be about 20 minutes. They should not take 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes. They should be 15 to 20 minutes. No one wants to spend that much time. And they shouldn't be that hard for the because I can't say that 15 is really hard. What I would say is 15 should not be that hard for the item level you get, since the highest item level you get is a mythic raid, which in order to get from mythic plus you get from your vault. So I don't see why mythic plus 15, which is the current hardest, should be that hard in a sense. Again, someone who cleared 18s, 15 mapping is not hard, but it is very tedious, and it's like you can't really make a whole lot of mistakes, and it's not very forgiving overall, even if you're out gearing it. You can still not time a 15, especially depends on which week it is on. Okay, and if one player just like AFK half the time, like absent-minded, just sucks, whatever. Like, can you carry it with 4 people? Yes, but it's like it's too hard for what it actually is. It's not fun, and for the amount of time it takes, plus the amount of time it takes to form, it's literally like you basically on a good day you're doing one mythic plus dungeon per hour. You only have so many hours to play the game, and honestly sometimes you have like 30 minutes. Like, hey man, I have 30 minutes, I got nothing to do, I want to play some WoW. What can you do in 30 minutes in WoW? Nothing. There's literally zero things you can do in WoW for 30 minutes. Even arena rated, you need to find a partner, and no one will want to partner with you for like 20 minutes. Solo queue could solve it, yeah. RBGs, it takes an hour just to form, right? You can't do anything meaningful in 30 minutes in WoW. Right. Right now, I can log into Final Fantasy in 30 minutes. I can queue into an expert dungeon, which gives me the tombstones for the 580. Yeah, 580 gear. No, sorry, it's not 580. It's like 590 gear. But the tombstones used to upgrade the 580 gear into 590 gear. I can do that in half an hour. I can log in, just do that. I can log in and do some crystalline conflict. 30 minutes. That's about 5 matches that I can probably get through, especially because it's instant queue. Right? There's nothing I can do in WoW for 30 minutes that's like remotely relevant to anything. Absolutely nothing. And I think that's a big problem. A lot of people like they have a bit of time here, a bit of time there. Obviously, they have their massive times where like they know this is my WoW time, like my Tuesday night for raid. That's my WoW time, but it's like you have nothing to do. Like I can literally go on play League of Legends right now, and I have a good chance that within 30 minutes I'll be finished with the game. Right? There are some games that last longer, but I would say majority, like I have a very good chance that 30 minutes I would be able to finish a game. Right? Nothing like that in WoW, and I think that's also a big problem. So having it a single player, where you don't need other players to do certain things, is actually pretty good. You can actually do level 90 dungeon, expert dungeon, with bots. And the best thing about it, bots, you can actually AFK. You just come close enough for the bots to grab aggro, and you can just like do your own thing while the bots fight. They kill it, you move up ahead and let the bots fight. The only time you have to pay attention is boss fights. That's about it.
For Azeroth, the World of Warcraft writers were pulling from the Warcraft lore, both Warcraft Orcs and Humans, Warcraft Tides of Darkness, and then Reign of Chaos and the Frozen Throne. They were pulling from that war, and by the time they ran out of that lore, they had to start to write their own, and it just wasn't as deep.
No, I agree with that. That's absolutely part of the issue. I think there's so many compounding issues, like the borrowed power, the running out of material to work from.
Yeah.
There's just so many, like the talents changing to the point that they're useless.
Yeah.
Killing community. That they sandbagged that game so hard in the span of 2 expansions. I think they keep trying to find which one was it that was the issue, but they've been overlooking the fact it was all of them.
Okay. And this actually links quite nicely to the idea of The Simpsons. Yep. World of Warcraft.
Wrath was the end of WoW in my head. My head too. After a while, after Wrath, in my opinion, WoW is kind of like a different game. I mean, it still has that like WoW into it, like, but yeah, there was something that's like ever since Wrath ended, that's like kind of like stop.
Was a response to EverQuest, because EverQuest was quite complex and difficult to get into at the time. EverQuest and Ultima Online had this feud thing going on. World of Warcraft came out, and at the time, World of Warcraft was actually the casual game. It was much easier
compared
to
to
get into
EverQuest.
It was
Yes,
much more beginner friendly. It was much faster. It was much more cool. It was pushed.
Yes.
And then as it's gone on and on and on, do you think World of Warcraft is now the Simpsons of MMORPGs? It's popular because it's been popular for so long. It's so well known. It's almost grandfathered into culture. And just as The Simpsons is now telling stories with established characters for the sake of telling stories. I mean, recently there was a Simpsons episode where they showed a flashback.
Some guy says in chat, WoW is extremely casual. It's so casual, not friendly.
And the flashback was Homer and Marge and Chief Wiggum and Dr. Hibbert in school. But they
Unless your idea of casual is just doing world quests, WoW is not.
were in school in the year 2000 and they were doing a play about the Y2K computer bug that was going to be big. But
well, I need to define what casual is. Okay, let's say like this. If you are watching guides, reading Icy Veins guides or whatever, you have a DPS meter, and if you have, and you're doing like Mythic plus 12 or above, you're not casual. I'm just saying, you're already not casual. You're above the average. At that point, you're already above the average. I can't even call you casual. Casual, in my opinion, is someone who's doing Mythic plus 5s, which is like almost no difference. Up to Mythic plus 6, I would say. Mythic plus 7 is the second affix, so it's like Mythic plus 6 you can still handle. Mythic plus 6 is normal raid, maybe. Probably not killing the last boss though until like maybe month 2 or 3. I'm not talking about like they're bad players. They just don't have the time and to invest into this. Okay, that's what I think about casual. Literally LFR grinders, because like they can't do anything else, like just time wise. It's really not casual friendly to play WoW. You need too many people to do a raid. It takes too much time to form a dungeon group. It takes too much time to do an RPG, and it is actually like very hard to get an arena partner you actually get along with, and you can't solo queue into arenas. All the content that WoW has to offer, which is raids, dungeon, and PvP, are not accessible on demand. They require a lot of commitment, and it's very not casual friendly.
But we've already seen flashbacks during the year 2000 to The Simpsons when they were in the 1990s or the mid 1980s, which means The Simpsons now has absolutely no continuity whatsoever with time frames. Was Homer a child in the 90s or a child in the 80s or a child in the 2000s? We don't know anymore. It's now just messed up.
Yeah, do you know, I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right. Yeah.
It's so messed up, man. World of Warcraft is now a vehicle for pushing gameplay. No one cares about the plot, it pushes gameplay. The Simpsons is simply a shell of itself for pushing disconnected stories featuring characters we know and we've already established and already joined up to. Is World of Warcraft The Simpsons? I mean, I'd never thought of that comparison before. What do you guys in chat think? What do you guys think, Cal? Cal, is World of Warcraft The Simpsons?
In that regard, yes,
I think
sure.
It might be actually.
In that regard, sure.
I'd never thought about that, but you're spot on.
We're spot on. We came to this conclusion. The chat's spot on.
Yeah, everyone's right. Nobody can be wrong here.
You know what?
No, I think you are right with that. Definitely.
Someone in the chat just said, "Wow, Josh, you're really smart." I'm not. Okay, I'm dumb enough to know that I need to talk to people smarter than me. Callum knows way more about development than I will ever know. You guys in the chat right now, you've got so many more opinions and so much more knowledge than I've got. All I'm good at doing is bringing a lot of ideas together and trying to make them sound dummy simple. Because if I can't make them sound dummy simple, I don't understand them.
Oh wow,
That's the
sounds
best way to look at
he's
it.
just
So
like me.
I think we
Dumb
unfortunately have
things
just
down.
discovered that World of Warcraft is The Simpsons.
It's a sad time to be alive.
What a great way
really
to, brilliant way to end the podcast.
Oh, that was it. That was an interesting place to end, and I guess that was a part of it. Yeah, it was just a cut from the actual podcast. Anyways, yeah. So the fuck, man, World of Warcraft is The Simpsons. What times to live in? Anyways, yeah, I would say they made some good points for sure, but yeah. Well, like, what can you really say? State of WoW is not good. It started good when they were talking about like the hopes of Dragonflight, but again, you've been around WoW for a while, you know that there's no hope. I'm totally down with WoW going to smaller adventures, but let's be real. The thing with WoW is the draw of WoW was always the raids, the dungeons, and the Mythic Plus. The story, pretty much no one cared about really, since Wrath of the Lich King, and after that was just like wow moment, literally wow moments, World of Warcraft moments at that point, where it's like holy shit, can't believe this happened, kind of thing. Like, I don't think they're gonna have it with Dragonflight, and I'm totally fine with it trying to change directions, but the thing is with WoW, they don't even need to change directions. All they need to do is make loot more accessible, make it less grindy, and be more alt friendly. All the systems, account bound. All of them. Everything you have to grind, fun, no fun, doesn't matter if it's fun or not. For me, Torghast was fun. I was doing Torghast for myself, and I was even like pushing my friends through Torghast on the high levels, and I found it fun. I literally spent so much time just doing the max level Torghast for no reason, just because I enjoyed it. Then I had to do it on multiple characters, and I just got burned out. I was like, I can't even like, I don't even want to see the portal to Torghast. Like, I'm so down with Torghast, right? Because I kept having to do it. It's like at some point I'm like, yo, I don't want to do it anymore, right? And I enjoyed the system. I enjoyed the Torghast up until I didn't, and then it's like, but I still have to do it, right? And I have to do it multiple times on multiple characters. It was just not fun. Um, yeah, it's
Speaking of critical,
yeah. In my opinion, WoW does not need a new direction. WoW just needs more accessibility, and that's it. It's not even like make it casual friendly. Make it actually alt friendly. Make it actually a game. Once you finish your main character, any other character can catch up to you. Aside from like story wise and system wise and stuff like that, as fast as possible. Yeah, maybe you're not gonna have the best in slot gear, but you can already have all the abilities available to you, all the cool toys to play with. That shit needs to be account bound. Everything that is a new toy to play with, account bound. Everything else, sure, the gear progression and whatever. In my opinion, though, more drops from Mythic Plus, more drops from Raid. There's no reason for me to keep hoping for my best in slot trinket from, let's say, the first boss of a raid every fucking week, and it's just like for 2 months it doesn't drop, and by the time it drops, it's almost irrelevant because in a couple months it's gonna be not in challenge and challenge timelines, but like usually 4 months I would say it's time for a new raid. Okay, and it takes you 2 months to get your best in slot trinket, and 2 months is going to be relevant. Then you have to regrind all over again. No, that's bullshit. Within the first month, if I am grinding the game within the first month, if not the first two, well, first month is fine, I guess. If I'm killing all the bosses, let's say I'm doing a full mythic and heroic clears of the bosses, I should be guaranteed within a month to get all my best in slot. I don't think that's too much for one character, not all my characters, for one character, because then I can play the other characters and grind them out as well, right? Maybe I won't get the best in slot on all my characters, but my main guy should have the best in slot within the month, in my opinion, right? You killed this boss, you didn't get the loot, you get a token. 4 tokens, you can buy the item you want, right? Right now I could play the whole expansion and never actually finish my character before it's time to go for the next one. And I'm talking about finishing like everything best in slot, everything that you want. But the problem is you can get everything you want, but then you might want to be like, yeah, I want to try playing with more haste on my paladin. I want to try playing with more crit. I want to try playing with this. Now you have a whole different set of best in slot that you need to farm. You can't even experiment, so you have to follow a guide, because if you experiment, you literally wasted like almost 2 weeks to a month of your time for one item. I don't know. I just don't find fun. Just more accessible shit. Oh god. Wow, that tired me out. Check my my blood pressure. It looks like it's super low all the time or something. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Those are my thoughts about the Josh talking about World of Warcraft Dragonflight together with damn, what was his name? Takum. Callum.
Not...
Takum. No, Takum. With Callum. Lore wise, I would say they're not the best people to talk about lore. Like, he kind of got things right, but also kind of not. He got Sylvanas pretty right, that's for sure. But yeah. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Like, comment, subscribe, and all the YouTube stuff. It doesn't even matter. Let's be real. It's like, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Whatever. Anyways, take care, and until next one, peace out.